With selections, one for the record books. Local candidates bring out the big endorsements. Trump stokes more fear. I guess the question is why? And Hudson's Bay may be completely gone. All that and more. Of course, a lot's on the election. On our really big show, I'm Jim Csek with NowMedia. Iain Burns on the phone with me from Ottawa, our nation's capital. Again, another beautiful day here in the central Okanagan, in our live shop behind me there, with traffic flowing nicely in the central Okanagan. How are things looking out there in the great nation's capital?
It's actually all right today. It's blue skies. It's pretty chilly, but it's sunny. Earlier on, it was raining and gloomy. So I don't know. It's a little bit temperamental at the minute.
Hey, just to get everybody up to date on your car saga, whatever happened? You ended up buying a new car, I take it.
Yeah, well, Kia, our good friends in South Korea there, said that they would replace the engine because it apparently they often break in those cars. But they won't replace the turbo, which also exploded or stopped working. So it's still a dead car, and I just need to find a turbo, I guess, and then just get rid of it.
There you go. That's like the dentist saying that they'll give you new teeth, but the gums are completely gone too. So,
But somehow it's also the dentist's fault, but they'll only fix one thing that they broke.
there you go. Let's get right into the election coverage here. Yeah, so the polls are saying this election is one of the oddest he's ever seen. I did that interview with Mario Canseco yesterday, pollster from Research Co. It's it's going to come down to the wire. We're going to play a little clip here from Mario and myself here, and then we'll talk about it. While we're trying to get that going, Mario was saying it's one of the oddest elections he's ever seen, because then the Conservatives had that big lead, and then all of a sudden the Liberals had that super big lead, and now it's tightening right up here as we get near the end. And it's a lot has to do with what happens with the Bloc and or the NDP. How are you doing there, Rommel? You getting anywhere? Yeah.
One of the oddest ones that I've seen. I think the thing that really stands out when you look at the numbers is we're used to seeing the center-left vote coalesce around the Liberals in the final stages of the campaign, when voters are wondering if they're better served by choosing a government or a color of government, or choosing the candidate in the riding or the party in the riding that they like. And in this case, it started right after Mark Carney visited the Governor General. We saw a collapse in the vote of the NDP, a significant drop for the Greens. Even the Bloc is suffering from the fact that you have so many people coalescing around the Liberals. And the final 4 days are going to be crucial to this. Are we going to be in a situation where more people feel the same way, or are the numbers going to tighten up and we'll be in for a significantly closer election?
Best and worst dinner for your waistline.
I don't know what that is.
Sweet.
Not sure what's going on
It's
there.
the best and worst dinner for your waistline. If you're into the looks maxing, then you want to pay attention to that.
There you go. Again, we're having a couple of bumpy. Buckle up. We're in for a bumpy ride for the election as well. How's that?
I would say with Mario, he's been around the block a few times. He's a bit of a sort of a wise old head at this point in his career, I would say. So for him to say that he thinks this is one of the oddest elections he's ever seen, then that actually means something. He's not just like some nobody that's pulling that out of his behind. He's he's actually really thought about it, and he's got a lot of experience. And I think I really don't disagree with him. And obviously I've not been around as long as he has, but it is a very strange one. I mean, it's strange for so many reasons. So many things about this are weird, like including that the Prime Minister doesn't have a seat in Parliament and has never been elected by anybody ever. That's so strange. And he's going in on his like debut. Also, that he's in charge of a party that's had 3 terms in power, the last 2 of which were very much unloved terms, where they didn't even win
I
the
think
popular vote. It's so much about this is weird, and yet 3 terms. So 3 terms of a very, very controversial government under Justin Trudeau, 2 of which, as I say, were really unloved.
yeah, I
Economic,
mean, a lot of Canadians would
really poor
argue.
economic performance, and yet it still looks like they're going to win. I mean, it is so weird. I completely agree with Super Mario.
Basically a train wreck. I mean, our economy is kind of a train wreck, and that's what puts us in this vulnerable position with Donald Trump. And yet, it seems like a lot of Canadians think that's the guy that can fix it. The party that put us here, is now the party that can get us out of here. I don't get that, but hey, wild, absolutely wild.
Yeah, and it is all about him. It's all about Mark Carney. He's the protagonist in this election, I would say, followed by Donald Trump, not too far behind him. And as a consequence of that reality, Pierre Poilievre, who was riding high in the polls not that long ago, sort of 5 months ago, 6 months ago, he was flying in the polls. Now he's kind of like a third wheel, isn't he? He's like the forgotten man. So it's just so strange the way this is happening. This is just like you can't predict the future, basically, can you? Because we, like almost everybody in the kind of journalism, politics class or whatever of people, almost everybody assumed it was just a certainty that Poilievre was going to be Canada's next prime minister. I mean, you remember even a journalist from CTV or something like that, like screamed at Poilievre on one occasion when he refused to answer a question. She said, "You're Canada's prime minister in waiting, sir. You've got to answer this question." Like a bit of a breach in protocol for a journalist to do that. But it was nailed on. And then it's almost like Zeus or something has hurled a lightning bolt down and just completely turned everything upside down. It is just immensely strange, this
Well,
election.
lots of strange stuff. You can go watch that full interview with myself and Mario Canseco. It's a good interview, actually. Mario is very well at. He wouldn't make a prediction though, and we did do a lot of predictions when we were talking about the U.S. election and that. So, well worth your time to watch. He's thinking that BC, like in the U.S. election, Pennsylvania was the place to win, and he's thinking BC might be the place to win too, and that's why the Liberals are spending some time out here. Because I did ask him where should the parties be spending their time, and Mark Carney is out here in British Columbia right now, and Pierre is in Ontario, and I believe he's heading to Calgary for a big rally. So there you go.
I thought he was in Halifax, Pierre, but I guess maybe they're
No,
all over the place,
he's
aren't they?
heading.
There's several provinces in a day.
Yeah, no, I think they're. This is go time. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to sleep.
Yeah.
There you go. So let's get into some of this other stuff here. But that interview is on KelownaNow.com. You can go on there and you can watch it. You can also find it on our YouTube. It's in our live section and in our regular section. So you'll find it easy enough. Lots of comments on it as well. So there you go. Poilievre racking up the endorsements, though. Racking up the endorsements with labor unions, which is usually the NDP and the Liberals getting these, but I mean, he's really starting to rack up these endorsements, and it's tons and tons and tons of labor unions, which is, again, unusual.
It's the realignment in action. But I mean, I suppose the Liberals, they were never particularly beloved of the unions anyway, were they? It was more to do with the NDP. So I guess it's kind of like it's a sign that the NDP are that people are losing faith in the NDP. And I would say that has the potential to kind of sneak under the radar a bit. But I feel like in the aftermath of this election, there's got to be a very real prospect that the NDP will cease to exist. Because if they can't even, if unions even are abandoning the NDP, that's supposed to be the reason that party exists.
One of the key points in the Mario Canseco interview was that in the beginning, because he's from BC, he said that the NDP ads that were running on the radio in the Lower Mainland there were about the NDP forming government. He's saying Jagmeet Singh was saying he was a legitimate contender to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and now the ads are basically shifted to let's see how many seats we can salvage and see if we can keep 5 or 6 seats here to send representatives to Ottawa to represent the working class people.
Including Jagmeet Singh's
Yeah.
seat. That's
Yeah.
also at risk, isn't it?
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Polyev defends economic growth projections and conservative platform is essential. This is a story on KelownaNow.com. You can go on there and you can read that story. It was a Canadian press story. He's defending that conservative campaign platform, heavy reliance on economic growth. Lots of economists come out and say, yeah, that's possible. I've heard quite a few economists say that, but then obviously the detractors are saying not so much. But
To be fair, this is what a lot of banks do. This is even what central banks do, like the ones that Mark Carney used to lead. They do try and factor in growth. But I think the reality that maybe a lot of people should adjust to or be aware of is that economics is not a science, even though they pretend it is. Even though its nickname is the dismal science, it's not a science. It's not like physics. It's much more like politics. It's just guesswork, really. So for all these people that get upset, and then all these like self-important nerds come out and they're like, oh, the calculations do not add up. It's kind of just like, get back in your box. I mean, this is economics. It's all contingent. It's all a guess, really. And the Tory platform, just like the Liberal platform, is a guess. It's a very optimistic guess of what the future will look like.
Yeah, I sat down with Conservative candidate Dan Elbas here, one of the Kelowna ridings. We're going to play a small clip from that interview as well.
More than Justin Trudeau ever has. Right. So, we need to address economic growth. We need to deal with an aging demographics, particularly here in the Okanagan, but right across the country. We need to also show that we can stand on our own 2 feet, unleash our resources, and find new markets for our products, and rebuild our military. So there's a lot that are things that are out there. But I've been hearing from seniors that they're really happy to see the Conservatives have put forward a tax cut, so essentially so that it allows for working seniors that they can work without paying taxes up to $34,000. That's a bonus. For those that are turning 71 and have to cash in their RRSPs, they're happy to see some flexibility to age 73. And working families, they want to see for a 2-income family, they could save up to $1,900. So we have a very strong plan, and I'm glad Pierre Poilievre has put it out so that Canadians can now kick tires rather than kicking politicians.
There you go. That was the full interview is on NowMedia's YouTube. It's also on Kelowna Now and on our Kelowna Now X account and stuff. You can go watch that full interview with Dan Elbas. I am interviewing NDP candidate Harpreet Singh today. And I have interviewed Juliette Sicot, the Liberal candidate in Dan's riding. And I have reached out to Tracy Gray, a Conservative, and Stephen Fuhr, and Trevor of the NDP. And there you go. At least we're getting one from each. There you go. You can go watch that full interview on, like I said, on our NowMedia there. Poilievre said he'll scrap the Carney tax, right? And this is so important. This is absolutely important. And we've been talking about this over and over and over again. The Liberals seem to want to talk about the auto manufacturing sector and do everything to save the auto manufacturing sector. Yet it doesn't sound like they're going to scrap that EV mandate. And starting next year, it could add about $20,000 to gas-powered cars selling in Canada based on those EV mandates. So, they have...
Yeah, next year, 2026, is 20% of all new vehicles must be electric.
Or they start getting...
And if you go over your quota, then you get fined. And by 2035, it's 100%.
And then you and I have talked about that many times and saying if they don't scrap that EV mandate like they have in the United States, all the auto manufacturers in Canada will be leaving. Because not many of the legacy ones have an EV kind of like platform that is selling, that they make money at.
Yeah, Poilievre today in Halifax, earlier today, he was saying, he tried to sort of turn the tables on the Liberals a bit, and he was saying that this policy will benefit Tesla, specifically Tesla, which obviously the Liberals have kind of tried to use Musk and Tesla as a weapon to beat the Tories with, but he flipped it around and said that this will benefit Tesla. And I mean, as things stand now, I think that's actually an accurate assessment because Tesla is the leader in electric cars. We have 100% tariff on Chinese electric cars, so they're not. It doesn't look like they're going to play a role in our market at any point. So really, what does that leave? I mean, Ford have got a few, and Nissan, and here and
They're
there.
not making.
There's, you know,
Yeah.
but really,
Let's,
it's Tesla. Tesla's the big boy right now.
yeah. Let's put it this way: if you're looking for second place from Tesla as far as EVs go, you need a telescope to find second place, other than the Chinese EVs. And the legacy automakers just aren't making money selling them yet. I think there'll be some partnership agreements that happen. I'm guessing that Ford may be one of those that makes a deal, because they have all the auto manufacturers have made a deal in the supercharger network with the NCAS. But if you keep these mandates and there's excess capacity in the United States, why would Ford stay? Why would GM stay? Why would Honda stay? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? Stellantis.
Well, they've already suggested that they're going to bugger off, haven't they, Honda? And they certainly would. Doesn't matter how much you subsidize them. They're not going to hang around if they're forced to choose between, well, if they're forced to choose between the US and Canada, they're not going to stay in Canada. And also, if they're forced to choose between a jurisdiction where they'll be fined for producing certain cars or selling certain cars, or a jurisdiction where that isn't the case, I mean, obviously, they're not going to hang around and get fined, are they?
Well, Honda is very proud of their engine. I mean, they really are far behind in the EV world because they believe that they build some of the best gas engines in the world. And so
yeah, and that's probably true, isn't it?
And I would say Toyota's right in there with them. You know, like as far as, you know, like the Toyota's, you know, still I think the world's largest automaker, but you know, there's a lot of people nipping at its heels. But in the EV world, it really is only Tesla. And you know, even though some people may want to lose their minds over that, but that's what it is.
If the Chinese were given a fair crack in the Western markets, they would probably sell more than Tesla, I would imagine. But I don't think that's going to happen because they fiddle with their currency and all the rest of it to such an extent that they've alienated the Western countries, so they can't do business there.
They subsidize their EVs a lot, and that's how they've kind of crushed the auto market in China. And
yeah.
And they do have like a bigger offering. Tesla kind of has like this bread and butter kind of like, they only have like 4 real models, I think 5 now. But whereas BYD, I don't know how many models they have, but all their things, they just have such diversity in their model lineups. And some of them are very luxurious. I've sat in some of the back of some of the Chinese ones in the front. It's like it's stepping into a movie theater. Like it's absolutely crazy how good they are.
But the most important diversity from those EVs is the diversity of price. Whereas Tesla is like, you might as well, you know, you're going to have to remortgage your house if you want one of those. Whereas BYD sell them cheap as chips. But as you said, that's because the Chinese are very, very cheeky the way that they run their industries, and they subsidize them like mad, and they overproduce and all the rest of it. So it's not the price you pay for a BYD car or whatever isn't anywhere near the true price, the true cost of production.
I'll just say a little share a little personal reflection. Yesterday, I sold a Model 3 after I upgraded. So I sold this Model 3 used. I think you only have a couple days left up to May 1 to purchase a used EV in British Columbia without paying any sales tax. So there was people, you know, anxious to buy them to save saving about like $5,000-6,000. But the person that bought it, they have 4 Teslas in their family already. And the guy that I was talking to, he said like there's no way that he would ever go back to buying a gas car after, you know, he's been driving them for about 3 or 4 years now. And he said the amount of money that he saves in fuel and then zero maintenance, he said it's just incredible. So why would he ever go back? So that's why he keeps adding them to his family.
But you do need to get maintenance when people throw eggs at your Tesla and smash your windows.
Car wash, stuff like that. You have to get a car wash. Anyway, there you go. Conservatives and liberals called out for lack of prudence in their platforms. There you go. Both the Liberals and Conservatives being attacked over their party platforms ahead of Monday's election. The Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy, a think tank based in Ottawa. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, well, they gave they were basically all the same. The reviews from this particular think tank for all the parties were basically the same, but the Liberals were slightly higher and the NDP and Tories are about the same, I think. But yeah, not happy. In general, economists, they're a funny old bunch of people, aren't they, economists? But they're unimpressed, as they almost always are. They're very unimpressed with Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, and don't even get started on Singh. I don't think they even read his platform.
I'm Renee Merrifield, yourself, and myself did a breakdown of the two platforms yesterday. So if you want to see from our perspective what we see in the platforms, that story should be going up today, but you can find it on our NowMedia YouTube channel as well. I thought we did a really good job breaking it down, and I do highly recommend everybody go out and read both platforms. Like, put them next to each other and read them, see which one resonates with you before you make your voting selection, because there's a lot in there. One speaks very academically, and then one speaks in plain speak, and one really is all about bullets and highlights of what you're going to get, and the other one is more about, I guess, a feeling of what you're going to get. I don't know. There you go. But go watch it. Go watch the video.
One of them contains the phrase "elbows up" as well.
And one of them contains.
You'll never guess which one.
Yeah. And one of them contains no reference to pipelines at all, and the other one contains many references to pipelines. How's that?
Indeed.
One definitely speaks in plain English, like common and common language. The other one speaks, I guess what they're trying to maybe is over your head to impress you. I imagine. I don't know. Locally, things heating up though, like really heating up locally, and it's kind of got like the big guns showing up here locally. We've had for Stephen Fuhr, Jean Chrétien, and Christy Clark endorsing Stephen Fuhr. I tried to get a hold of Christy Clark the other day, and I got her number late last night, and I'm maybe trying later today here, but we do have a YouTube video. This story is on Kelowna Now, so you can go watch that. I did interview Gordon Campbell while he was on the road yesterday. I got to interview him and talked about his thoughts on Tracy Gray, and also Stephen Harper came out with an endorsement for Tracy Gray. So kind of a interesting thing where all the big guns, and again in 2019, our company here, Kelowna Now and NowMedia, held Level Up here in 2019, and Iain and I both got to talk to Stephen Harper and Jean Chrétien, and we hosted both of them here in our leadership summit. And here they are again together in Kelowna, at least virtually.
Yeah, it's destiny, apparently, isn't it? Chrétien's got he actually had a very interesting story about Kelowna, because he came as a minister, and I don't know if this is wrong, but I think he said the 1960s. I guess that's kind of how old he actually is. But he was on about when he came, and it was just like a tiny town, basically. So in his lifetime, he's seen Kelowna transformed in a kind of unimaginable way, really.
He actually mentions in his second book the Level Up conference as well.
Yeah, but now he's come out for Stephen Fuhr, and he reckons that if you listen to his little speech, it's like 2-minute monologue, he reckons that Stephen Fuhr and Mark Carney together will hold off the Trump menace. So there you go.
There you go. I did interview Gordon Campbell. That is up on the site already. It's in this story. So if you go on Kelowna Now, you'll find the story. Tories and Grits bring out the big guns as race for Kelowna. This riding is definitely up in the air for sure. Like these, I think the Dan Elbis riding is probably a little bit safer, but this one is definitely going to go down to the wire.
I mean, it's kind of astonishing on paper, because Tracy Gray won. She's won it by like nearly 10,000 votes the last couple of times, hasn't she? So you might be thinking like, what the hell? But the reality is that it's a new riding, and it kind of cuts out a lot of kind of south of the downtown core, where more conservative voters live, perhaps. Or people who are usually more inclined to vote for the Conservatives live. And it concentrates on downtown Kelowna, which has changed so much, even in the last sort of like Parliament. So, I mean, it is It is going to be a tight one, and we saw obviously Lawyer Wooldridge nearly won it, didn't he, for the NDP? It's a very similar one, isn't it? The provincial one, I believe, provincial riding. There's a lot of crossover there, and he very, very nearly won it, like barely anything in it at all. So, I mean, obviously there is that sort of left liberal electorate there, and it's gonna be really tight, yeah. And it's interesting as well, I must say, because Tracy Gray's like she's a real like lieutenant of Poilievre's. She led his campaign for the leadership in BC, I believe, didn't she? She was like Poilievre's go-to woman, and she's often up and chatting in Parliament on the sort of opposition's behalf. She's clearly an important figure for Poilievre, so that would be a real loss, I think, for the Conservatives.
Yeah, you can go listen to that interview with Gordon Campbell. I did ask him what I thought was an important question, like is why the 55 plus are voting for more slanted towards liberal, and he had a pretty good answer. So you can go watch that interview to see his or listen to his answer. That's all I really got on that. I just encourage people to go and watch the interviews and go read that story, because there's the sound bites there from Jean Chrétien and Christy Clark as well.
Yeah, it's all in that story, embedded all those. The only one that's not embedded is Harper, because Harper just released a written statement rather than a video.
Maybe we should try and call him. I think Renee is actually visiting him out there in Calgary. We should
absolutely. Well,
see if we can get the big gun.
Make it happen.
And I might try to get Christy Clark. I do have her number, so we'll see. We've got some questions for Christy Clark for sure. There you go. And then the National News Watch is saying that Poilievre may lose his seat in the Ottawa area riding as Liberals poised to sweep the region. Well, there you go.
Well, this is the Globe and Mail, and they've quoted 4 anonymous sources within the federal Conservatives and also the provincial Conservatives, because progressive Conservatives they're called in Ontario. They obviously help them out in the federal elections. There's a lot of crossover in that realm, but they've come out and said that apparently they're kind of diverting resources away from borderline seats elsewhere back home to Poilievre's riding. Which obviously, I mean, if that is true, if that's accurate, and they say that they've got internal polls that suggest that they are literally, it's a dead heat, 47-48 or something like that. And if that is the case, then obviously it's going to be an absolutely catastrophic night for the Conservatives, and they're going to get thoroughly battered in the election. So I mean, it's a very gloomy story for the Conservatives, but if that's true, then RIP Conservative Party.
I would also take that with a grain of salt, because they have played a lot of games in that riding for sure, including putting like 80 people on that ballot. So
yeah, it's a pretty ridiculous one, isn't it?
Lots of games.
I mean, that riding is very rural, and the Poilievre's constituency office is in a place called Manotick, which is it's a very affluent sort of place. It's almost like a rural village out sort of still in Ottawa, but not really. It's very conservative. I mean, I've been there many times. I used to live there in the riding. Anyway, it's a very sort of conservative leaning riding, and even the more urban bits are kind of like lots of families like who tend to vote for the Tories. So just based on my own experience of that riding, I would be really surprised if that went Liberal, to be honest. But there you go.
I would be shocked as well, because I did my own poll there. I called my friend who works for the federal government, and her and her family are definitely not voting for the government that employs her.
Yeah, well, I just mean, it's kind of it's like classic conservative country. Anybody that's been there would know what I'm on about. It's loads of farms. It's quite a rural riding, but I don't know. I mean, you never know, do you? I think it's this like the mystery of the Trump and Carney combo. That mystery. I don't know. Maybe it's turning a lot of people's heads, and they want to go in for the carney. I don't know.
Days before the election, Trump sticks his paw in the bee's nest again and rattles it. And you have to question is why. Because I know what he wants. He wants the auto industry all the way back into North America. He wants it all back in the U.S. And again, if the EV mandates stay here in Canada, he will get the auto industry back in the United States. So, I think he's pretty much said that he wants the Liberals to win.
Well, he said it explicitly. He said he would rather work with the Liberals. Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny. It's one of those things where immediately people were saying, "Oh yeah, he's just saying that. He doesn't really, he's just being cheeky." But I sort of think like, actually, maybe it's like a double bluff, and actually that is what he wants.
Well, I believe he wants
There are
the
many reasons to suppose that's the case.
I believe he really wants the automobile industry. That's that's the feather he wants. He wants the automobile industry out of Canada and out of Mexico, because he said it's hurt lots of U.S. auto workers' jobs, and the unions want it back too. And one way to do it is if Canada keeps that EV mandate, they're going to come willingly. It's not even going to be. They're not even going to have to try and bribe them to come back. They're going to leave Canada willingly. When Carney talks about the Canadian auto sector, I'm puzzled as to what he's talking about.
And it's not just that, it's obviously any sort of industrial projects. And we know that Trump loves that, doesn't he? He's all about blue collar jobs and he's all about energy, loves cars. He's probably thinking which prime minister is less likely to focus on that. Like which prime minister is less likely to give me competition in those areas. And based on the platforms, it probably is the Liberals, isn't it? So I guess that's the one you'd want to fight against. Plus, I think he likes to be antagonistic anyway. He wants to be antagonistic towards Canada, and it's a lot easier to do that with a Liberal in there.
I think if you look at it, Canada's strength is energy. That's our strength. And if our strength is being subdued by a green climate policies, that plays into Trump's favor too, because that makes the energy in the United States worth that much more, with no competition from Canada to sell to Japan, to sell to South Korea, to sell to Europe, all that kind of stuff. If Canada suppresses its natural wealth, plays right into his hands, because they've scrapped all that stuff. They've scrapped the EV mandates. They've gotten rid of all this climate stuff. They're like actually even ferreting out in even these small places. Like they're just actually going in there and digging it out of everywhere. And it puts them at a huge advantage to Canada, a huge advantage if we continue down the same path.
Plus, it's the attitude towards taxation. Trump is very much cut taxes and then like see what happens kind of guy. Whereas the Liberals seem to have, their inclination appears to be, let's see how many taxes we can introduce before it breaks the camel's back.
If the Liberals win and they keep going down this road, Canada will be extremely economically weak, and investment will flee Canada. I mean, you can hold me to that.
Well, the argument from the Liberals is to the contrary. It's that the whole world is going towards clean energy, and all these renewable projects. That's where all the investment is, and the Americans. The way that the Liberals present it, it's the Americans that are making themselves like a black sheep. And they're going down a sort of a blind alley, and they're going to lose out. But the reality is, talking about this theoreticals and all the rest of it, like in relation to the platforms, the reality is that green energy as a sort of working component, major component of world energy supplies, that's theoretical. That's a theory. It hasn't yet been seen in practice. Whereas the fossil fuel economy is very real, and we've been living off that now for 200 300 years or whatever, and it works.
Yeah, the UK is a little bit further down this green thing than Canada is. And you moved back there for a bit and had to leave because you couldn't even turn the heat on in your house.
Yeah, and it's just getting worse and worse as well. I mean, there's an interview doing the rounds now. The guy in charge of energy, England's Stephen Gilboa, let's say, is a chap called Ed Miliband. And he was on the radio, I think it was this morning, and he was asked, oh no, sorry, it was a TV interview. He was asked, do we have a 78% tax on energy companies in the United Kingdom? And he said, yes. And then he said, has that got anything to do with us having the most expensive energy in the world? And then Ed Miliband said, no, you're wrong. Tax has nothing to do with it. So it's kind of like, that's the kind of delusional way of thinking that net zeroism
Yeah. Well, that's
can produce. So
Steve,
get ready for some of that.
Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau repeated that over and over, and Mark Carney, being one of the architects for this carbon tax, said that the carbon tax did nothing to add to inflation. But now they're saying by taking it off will reduce inflation. Weird.
Well,
Absolutely.
this is the kind of like magical thinking that net zero it seems to produce it in people because there is no that it doesn't have reality on its side, unfortunately. I wish it was true. I wish we could have all this lovely clean energy and not have to deal with pollution or whatever. I mean, I think most people wish that was true, but just because you wish something's true doesn't make it true. And sadly, yeah, it's just not reality, is it? And we're supposed to deal with reality, particularly in our business of the media.
So there you go. Yukon offers low-cost loan for up to half of your first-time home buyer's down payment. There you go. And if you're going to live in the Yukon, you're going to have these climate policies for energy and that. You can. They're going to make the cupboards detachable so you can burn them when you're cold.
That's still a pretty amazing offer, though, isn't it? For like your government basically to pitch in with 50% of your down payment. And if you read it, it's like you basically it's got 2.5% ceiling, I think. So that's
Yeah.
the rate that they're gonna give it
If you
to you.
go,
And then you don't even have to pay it off
no.
until, or I think you don't even have to start paying it off until you've paid your mortgage off. So, you could be
There you
long
go.
dead by that time.
If you go read my LinkedIn post from a couple of years ago, they stole that from right there. I think that they should be offering first-time home buyers or the ability to get a deferred loan, basically, and forgivable if they own the home for over 10 years. There you go. So makes sense to me.
Well, it's the kind of, I mean, obviously you can kind of do this sort of thing in Yukon, can't you? Because it has such a small population. It's got a
Yeah.
population that's smaller than like most cities in Canada. It's like it's not the same as a province, but I mean, it is the kind of radical thinking that's necessary if you're actually serious about helping young people get homes. It is the sort of thing that you might have to consider.
There you go. LNG could help break Canada's dependence on U.S. energy, but there's no guarantees. So there you go. The CBC has taken a look at how LNG could break Canada's reliance on the U.S. There you go. But facing many threats,
Well,
including Alaska
it,
LNG.
That's the big deal there. That's
There.
the kind of there's a lot of waffle in this article where they talk to people about, for some bizarre reason, they talk to somebody who is at an activist investment vehicle or something along those lines that invests in renewable energy. You can guess what he has to say about LNG. He's not very impressed with it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like wasted lines in this article. But the one about Alaska is really interesting because that's the main rival, I would say, for British Columbia, because obviously they're just as close to Asia, and Asia's the market. So if they get there first, they could end up doing some sort of like long-term deals with Asian countries, and then that might be bad news for BC.
And again, another reason that Donald Trump wants the Liberals to win, because that they'll make LNG coming to market a lot more difficult and actually play right into the hands of making Alaska's LNG look very, very desirable.
Well, if it comes down to a race, if it is literally a race, like to get it built, the Americans have got vastly more capital, obviously, and it's a lot easier to get hold of that money to invest. They have a system that is a bit more favorable to approvals right now, but also Trump is desperate to make it even better. Alaska is like a deep red Republican state where they try and rush these things through anyway. They got a lower tax sort of system there, so it's cheaper as well. I mean, it's going to be hard, isn't it? If we're honest, it's going to be that's a hell of a challenge.
Yeah, and then if you put in all the stuff that the Carney Liberals are talking about, green energy superpower, then there you go. Basically,
Maybe we can export wind to the Japanese when they ask us for LNG.
sell it in a jar, put the wind in a jar and sell it to them.
Fresh Canadian wind.
Well, I mean, if they've convinced people that that Canada can be an energy superpower, green energy superpower, instead of a traditional energy superpower, maybe they can sell wind in a jar. There you go. 1 year after BC's short-term, this is outside of the election now, 1 year after BC's short-term rental crackdown, the question is being asked, has it made housing any cheaper? And that story is on Kelowna Now. Basically saying it really hasn't made much of a difference. There is a lot more inventory now on the markets and a lot more to hit the markets, and that's what's really dropping the prices. But it is a lot more expensive to get a hotel. So
yeah, that's for sure.
It's a lot more expensive to get a hotel. You can go read that whole interview there. Now David Eby saying maybe when the province gets back to healthy rental levels, the government would reduce restrictions on short-term rentals. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes they ever made. Myself, especially here in our market here, the tourism market, definitely hurt our tourism market. And again, they wouldn't listen for quite a while. Now that we're seeing rental vacancy rates in the 6, 7, 8% range here in Kelowna now, people are starting to get antsy. Both the people building all these apartment rentals and the tourism sector wondering where the tourists are.
But it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's kind of like the pendulum swing. It went insanely far in the other direction, to the point where what the vacancy rate, I think was it under 2% at one point or something. It was like insane. It was so tight, and it was so miserable for so many people. And it was like, just talking about Kelowna here specifically, but it's the whole of BC. It was destroying people's lives, and it was, to some extent still is as well, isn't it? It's destroying BC's capacity for growth and the capacity to flourish. And then, maybe the pendulum's gone in the other direction now, and it's just something that seems to happen with government policy, isn't it? Like they just get it wrong again and again and again, and the more wrong they get it the first time, they have to get it equally wrong the next time, don't they? It just seems to be the pattern.
Yeah. And then that jaw-dropping report, this is the Holydome Blacklock story, not getting a lot of press, but it's definitely getting, in some circles, getting some, we talked about a little bit yesterday, getting some discussion. You would think that this thing would be like on every outlet. Yesterday you and I talked about how the CBC actually downplayed this report.
Well, the Canadian press, which is kind of not meant, I mean, some people know about the Canadian press, but its importance maybe is understated. It's an extremely important news platform because almost everybody prints their stories, so they get like huge exposure. But they've finally done a story on it, or they've mentioned it in a story today, and the headline is Poilievre paints picture of gloomy future under Carney. And then you scroll right down, and they describe it as, let's have a look. What do they say? They refer to it as a little known federal policy unit that published this report, and they do the exact same thing that CBC did, where they say it also makes space. It also talks about positive ideas such as a rejection of conspicuous consumption and a new focus on policies that promote healthcare, housing, the environment, and education for its own sake. Again, you have to read this report. That's not
go and
what
read
they
it.
say. They say that people are going to give up. They're going to give up trying to improve their lives, and they're going to start to live on little sort of hippie communes out of desperation, like some sort of like the favelas in Brazil or something like that. It's not a positive story whatsoever. It's a total misreading of that report.
And it's written by the government. and it's actually you got to read this report yourself. You got to go read it and then read CBC stories and the Canadian press stories and ask yourself, how are they painting it as this is a Poilievre thing when it's not written by Pierre Poilievre, it's written by the government, and it paints a really, really bad picture of Canada. And then Holydome Blacklock said that we're actually, part of it's already happening. You know what I mean? It's not even that this is what's going to happen. A lot of it's already happening.
Yeah, and that is what Polyev says. That's his claim, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I mean, it's also this idea, the idea that's been put forward by CBC and Canadian press. Well, actually, not so much Canadian press, but this idea that it's about a theoretical future, and it's not a judgment on the Liberals, guys. But it's kind of like, obviously, what happens in 15 years will be heavily influenced by what's happened in the last 10 years. That's the nature of reality, isn't it? But as usual, the CBC just seems to occupy another plane of existence.
Well, I think they occupy one plane, and that's trying to save themselves. So there you go. Pierre Poilievre and his wife did an interview with Jasmine Lane. She does this over-opinionated column. We're just going to play a little clip here from it, because she asked them the common myths that are used to create fear about the the Conservative Party. Let's go play this clip here.
I'm a 28-year-old woman. It's something I often hear from friends of mine, as well as just in the comment sections on social media. People who are they've completely bought into this fear-mongering that the Conservative Party is going to ban abortions, that the Conservative Party is against LGBTQ2IA plus communities. I'll ask this to both of you. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you think people have about being conservative and being Canadian today?
Well, first of all, I want to bat those down very quickly. Where our policy in our platform since 2004 that was adopted by our members is that there will be no restrictions on a woman's choice in abortion. That's in our policy. It will be printed in my platform. I've made that comment countless times, and it just won't happen. So that's the first point. On people's sex lives, I'm not interested. If I were starting a political party from scratch, I would call it the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party. My goal is to basically let people make their own decisions, and whether it's about their love lives or about their wallets or their speech or what food they eat or car they drive. I don't want to be involved in any of those things. I'm not in this to run your life. I want to run a government that protects the borders, provides services people can't provide for themselves, and a military that keeps us safe and strong, an economy that grows so people have jobs. That's my job, and I'm not interested in running people's lives. That's ironically, it's the party that does want to run people's lives is the Liberal Party. They want like a gigantic octopus party, government that just has hands everywhere, running in your wallet, in your household, in the raising of your kids, in your internet feed. They want the government to control everything. I want pretty much the opposite. Like, let people decide for themselves. I don't believe politicians or bureaucrats have any divine powers to tell you how to live your life. In fact, to the contrary, when I walk around my riding and I talk to like plumbers and farmers and electricians and stuff, those people actually know more about the economy than most of the high-level bureaucrats and politicians I encounter. So everything I've experienced in life has taught me that politicians should just leave people the hell alone and to make their own decisions, to live their own lives, and to chart their own course.
There you go. He did that interview. You can go find that on the internet there with Jasmine Lane. She's even more opinionated than you and I.
I don't have any opinions, mate. I don't know what you're talking about.
I have opinions. You have sarcasm. That's where we're at. There you go. You can go watch that full interview there.
I would. That comes as no surprise to me whatsoever. I mean, I have seen that doing the rounds a little bit, that video, but I don't know why anyone's surprised by that. Pierre Poilievre is a libertarian. I would advise people, if that's their first, if they're surprised by that, Google the word libertarian, and then you'll learn a lot about Pierre Poilievre. He's like, obviously he's going to say that. He's all about the individual and small government and that kind of thing.
But I mean, the liberal machine has definitely tried to paint him differently. I mean, they brought those issues out, like they typically do. Especially, they definitely have one thing I would say for sure for the Liberals, they have a marketing machine second to none.
But they also have an audience second to none. Like they have an audience in Canada, in the Canadian electorate, that is willing to listen and be persuaded. It's not just that they're the masters of PR or anything like that. They also just they have a receptive audience, and that matters. It's like even if you're a bad comedian, even if your jokes are crap, if you've got the right audience, they'll laugh still, won't they? And we can't ignore that fact. There's an audience out there that is ready to hear this. They're ready to believe these things about Pierre Polyev. And it
Right.
almost seems to me that there's nothing that can be done to change their minds, for
Those are
some
tough.
people anyway.
They're tough to win over. Here's an opinion piece out of the Globe and Mail. Carney leading the same party, same players. The only thing that's changed is the socks, and the sock reference is obviously to Justin Trudeau. That was one of his big claims to fame. I would say like he definitely helped sock sales here in Canada. I don't know what else he did.
I would say, I mean, obviously that is true. He's leading the same party with the same players. I mean, there are some different faces, and some of Trudeau's team are out, like Pascal Santonge, for example. But yeah, that is broadly true. But I would just say it matters a great deal who the main man is. I don't really think that there are that many big dogs for the Liberal Party. I think they're pretty much going to be taking orders from Carney. So while that is
Right.
broadly true, I think it's also a little bit disingenuous.
Yeah. Also, though, Stephen Guilbeault is part of that led that climate agenda, and he's still like he's the lieutenant for Quebec, so he's still in the forefront in the cabinet, and he definitely has. It'd be hard to convince him to do things other than what he's been doing for the past 10 years.
Yeah, unless he gets dumped, which is always possible.
There you go. Here's a reporter here from the New West Times. I think that's one of the publications that's going. Is that one of the publications that's closing in May 1? I can't remember. There's a New West.
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, there's 3 publications set to close here in May. She tries to ask a question here of Mark Carney. We'll play that clip here.
Okay, so we'll leave you alone for a bit, but we'll come back.
Mr. Carney, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Have you heard the UK Supreme Court ruling that women are... Can you let me know if you think Canada should have the same? Mr. Carney?
That was rather rude, wasn't it? He just didn't want to. He didn't want to run the risk, did he? Because that's a pretty controversial subject, and I think he just thought, "See ya, don't have to answer that."
Yeah, he actually blew her off when he said, "Oh, sure, I'll answer a question." Then he just didn't like the question. He's just like, "And moving on." So that is not one of them that's set to close. The 3 that are set to close here, Burnaby Now, I believe it's already closed. Final closure date April 21st. This is all Bill C-18 related as well, I would believe. New Westminster Record, that's the one that's closed, April 21st. And then the Tri-City News is set to close here on May 21st. So there you go. That's 3 more publications. In Canada, these are Glacier Media.
And I'm pretty sure this woman here, Amy Ham, I think she's the BC nurse, isn't she? That was fired for she was fired because something to do with gender ideology or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not entirely sure that that's actually much of a news outlet. Maybe it's more of a kind of opinion magazine or something like that.
There you go. And then lots of rallies going on. Lots of rallies still going on. This is another just, for everybody worried about Canada. Here's an O Canada rendition here. I'm going to play a little clip.
Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love.
There you go. Rock concerts happening all across Canada.
Oh, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because look, I mean, it really looks like the Liberals are going to win to me, and you disagree and you think it's the other way. But if I'm right and that is what happens on Monday, Mark Carney's got he's got to take this very seriously, because the reality is that the Conservative Party, even if it loses, has got a huge amount of support, grassroots support, and it's it's real and it's there, and it's like they have to be accounted for. You really can't, like if Carney does indeed win and becomes prime minister again, he can't rule as though he's only going to represent liberals. He's going to have to really think about this conservative movement because it's massive.
Yeah. Yes, we do disagree. There you go. I look at I try to look at it from more of a common sense perspective and then see who's biased. It's hard to kind of like play with the numbers, but if I look at the demographics of the rallies, if I look at the people attending, the size of them, the motivation of them, I would say that it's definitely leaning conservative. If I look at the polls, definitely leans liberal. But if you look at their record, I mean, even when I talked to Mario Canseco, it's hard for a government to win the fourth time. Do you know what I mean? They've won 3 times, and they've had like you and I said in the beginning, they've had a terrible record. And there is people motivated, including the media. The media has been compromised in Canada. There's no doubt about it. They're compromised because their funding depends on it. You and I have talked about it many times. So they're motivated to sell this, that this is a liberal win because they're fighting for their lives. They're actually literally fighting for their lives, as we are. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've said this in this article. Independent media outlets will live or die, basically, on what the outcome of this election is. There's no doubt about it. So the only outlet left in Canada likely will be a federal arm of the government, and that'll be the CBC, which is really beholding to one party. So if that's the Canada that's left, then that's what it is. But if you care about a free and independent media, think about your choices.
Indeed, and many other reasons to think about your choices. But it's going to be a change election, isn't it? One way or another.
Yeah, foraging. If foraging sounds good, I don't know if it sounds good for the mooses.
Yeah, we'll be eating porcupines, mate. We'll be down to the bare bones.
And I think this next one here, CP article here says China says it wants to partner with Canada, push back against American bullying. That would be likely one of the worst traps for Canada ever fall into. That definitely would be. I mean, I think it would be catastrophic for Canada.
China, like I read this article, and I advise a lot of other people to read this article. It's the Canadian press, at the invitation, I believe, of the ambassador to Canada, the Chinese ambassador to Canada. They interviewed him and had a chat with him. And it's just like the Chinese, they're so bad at PR. They are absolutely abysmal. I mean, if they want to give me several $1 billion, I'll sort it out for them. But like the way that they speak about Canada, it's just so like I don't know what they're thinking, but it's kind of like a lot of what this article is about is kind of like blaming Canada, threatening Canada. It's like that's not the way to peel off Canada into the Chinese orbit. I think they do a really bad job. But I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, but I think the Chinese obviously don't believe this either. They're not gonna peel Canada off from the US. It's just nonsense. But you'd think that they would at least try and do the PR job a bit better and say some nice things about Canada and offer something, you know? But the only thing that they offer in this article, the only offer is if you take off your tariffs on EVs, we'll take off our tariffs on canola and whatever the other thing was. It's like, oh, okay. It's not a good offer, really, is it?
How about taking bounties off our MPs?
Or just any recognition, because it's brought up in that interview, and he just dismisses it. It's like, oh no. It's like, but any recognition whatsoever, please, that China's been a little bit heavy-handed with Canada.
You mean the execution?
No, obviously.
The execution of 4 Canadians?
That might be nice, yeah. But I think the Chinese, I've read a lot of Chinese history, and it's really interesting. And I would recommend everybody that has the inclination to do that as well. Read about Chinese history. It's so fascinating. It's so endlessly interesting. But the Chinese have always kind of been the middle of the universe. Like literally the name for China in Chinese is Zhongguo, which means the middle kingdom or the middle realm. Because they're at the middle, they're in the center of absolutely everything. That's kind of how they've always perceived the world. And to the Chinese, I think to the Chinese mind, even after 1949 and the communists and all the rest of it, I think they look at Canada and they just think like it's like a peripheral, barbarous, pointless state, like thousands of miles away that can't ever amount to anything. And it kind of reflects, it's reflected in this attitude. They don't come over and like compliment Canada. It's more like you may come and pay tribute to the Chinese emperor if you're a good boy, kind of thing. And that just doesn't work. It's never worked for China, really.
This is a CTV story. Canadian workers among the world's most stressed, global survey found. I imagine they're stressed because the way our economy is, who wouldn't be stressed?
Yeah. Well, also, and the uncertainty about the future.
I mean, you think of
Not
all the
surprised.
if you think of all the industries in Canada, including media. Like, I mean, how many people aren't stressed about like in media right now? And doesn't matter who wins, right? Like we're stressed if the Liberal wins because that'll possibly be the end of our outlet, and the CBC is threatened because they believe it'll be the end of the funding and the end of them. And then if you look at the auto sector, do you know what I mean? Like the lumber sector, like oil and gas sector believes if the Liberals win, that'll be the end of the oil and gas sector, and so on and so forth. And then if the Conservatives win, all the people making money off the green energy stuff will likely see all that funding dry up they've been living off of. Because most of the people that got rich off the green energy stuff are some corporations and stuff like that, and because they're only making money from government. Most of the money being made in that sector is government funding.
Yeah. Well, in general, we saw government spending increase dramatically, didn't we? Especially over the last sort of 5 years since COVID. And Mark Carney has made it very clear that that's his philosophy. That's his economic philosophy, is that the government can and should get its wallet out and intervene in the economy, like pretty promiscuously.
Yeah, they're going to build housing for you. They're going to build you modular homes. It'll be like 300 square feet, so that'll be your home for your children. That'll be nice. And then the other one is willing to allow you to build a home of your choice. There you go. There you go. Stock market. Stock market holding on to gains today. There you go. Holding on to gains. That's like 3 days in a row now that we're seeing green lights on the stock market. There you go. Who would have thought? Sad news for Hudson Bay, though. Sad news for Hudson Bay. Sounds like they were going to try and hang on to those 6 stores. That's that next slide there. Sounds like they were going to try and hang on to those 6 stores, but now it says in court filings that likely not so. It sounds like those 6 stores that were excluded from liquidation are now going to start getting liquidated.
It's terrible. I mean, is there no white knight investor that can come and rescue it? It surprises me immensely, actually, that there isn't one.
And they also have a lot of Canadian history. There's including a trove includes a royal charter that was granted by King Charles II in 1670, a document that only established the fur trade, but also give the company rights to vast swaths of land spanning from most of the country, an extraordinary power of trade and Indigenous relations for decades. There you go. Lots of history. The Hudson Bay, way older than Canada itself.
But that's older than a lot of countries, yeah.
But that's the nature of business in Canada right now. Everybody is hurting. Like everybody's hurting, and yet it doesn't seem to get a lot of recognition from the people that are still considering this Liberal Party for a 4th term. Like I don't understand. If you're driving a car, Ian, if you're driving a car and you run over a bunch of stuff, who's responsible?
I would say the stuff.
The stuff is responsible. There you go. The stuff for getting in your way.
Elon Musk is responsible for
not
self-driving.
There you go. Exactly. They just make up some nonsense and then nonsensical thing, and some people actually will buy it, I guess. There you go.
There's always an excuse, especially if it's politics, which is, about as rational as romance or religion or something like that. There's just always something that you can pull out of your back pocket, and it'll somehow make sense to you.
You can lie to some of the people some of the time, or you can lie to some of the people all the time. How's that?
Yeah.
All the time. Our friend Gold, up again this morning after getting knocked back from 3,500. Gold now, in the 33, 32, 33. I think it's right now at 33, 32. So, it'll be good and healthy for it to kind of chunk along here for a bit to build the base, because anything that goes vertical definitely is due for a fallback. So, but gold doesn't look like that's the end of gold. I mean, the way the world is right now. I mean, there was a massive attack there again in Ukraine again. So, like there was talk about peace talks, and then all of a sudden those broke down, and also there was a massive attack right on the city of Kiev as well.
Yeah. Trump put out a hilariously sort of childish Truth Social post where he's like, Vladimir, stop, which is just not really going to do him any favors, I don't think, as reputation as a statesman. But there's another thing you did mention there, which is, I mean, it's probably nothing, fingers crossed, touch wood, but it's really starting to hot up in South Asia with Pakistan and India, because there was that terror attack in Kashmir, and the Indians have come out and, in so many words, sort of blamed it on Pakistan. And that's starting to get a little bit feisty, as it does from time to time. Yep. And if that kicked off, then buy gold right now.
Buy gold. There you go. Bitcoin, like we've been talking about for the last little while, you could see how it was forming that base. We've been talking about it all along. It looks like it's ready to challenge that old high there. So there's your friend Bitcoin. Looking good.
Well, he's holding on to the gains, isn't he, Mr. Bitcoin there? Because you have to remember, like, not so long ago, well, you can see it in that chart, can't you? The gains were enormous. Yeah. Absolutely huge gains after Trump's election. And it's consolidating, really, isn't it? Those gains.
Our friend Justin Trudeau made a lot of fun of the Bitcoin, I think, when it was in the $20,000 or $30,000 mark.
Yeah, he must have sold all his Bitcoins.
And then our same Bank of Canada sold all its gold back in, I think we put that chart up a couple of days ago. Yeah, at a lot less. Canadian dollar. I think it's looking for a result. Let's see what happens on Tuesday actually, right? We'll see the reaction of the Canadian dollar on Tuesday. Tuesday. But most of the strength that's coming to the Canadian dollar is due to American weakness in the USD, not strength in the Canadian dollar. All currencies are floating higher because of the USD. There you go. In AI tech world, Grok can now see you, literally. There you go. Grok's got eyes on you now. Grok's voice mode now comes with camera access, letting users point the phone at things and says, "What am I looking at?" If you point it at yourself, and it says you need, what was that word? Man shaping or manscaping? What is it called? Man something?
Oh, the lux maxing.
Looks maxing, like, maybe it says it recommends the hammer so you can bash your face or something.
Yeah, it gives you an address to Home Depot so you can go and smash your jaw open or whatever it is.
Grok, there you go. Grok can see vision coming to a world need. This, and we're going to play this clip because you and I talked about this yesterday about the people in the UK there are going to actually try to dim the sun. So here they were playing a clip from these so-called scientists ready to dim the sun.
Can I leap in? This is a really important moral point. So if I made a decision, or if there was a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision. I think that has moral consequences. I don't sweep it under the rug. So this is a case where I take this much differently from Alan and think it's a much more serious issue. Now, it's true that as part of doing that, you would hope that the overall benefits of human mortality would be so that you would save many, many more people than that. But the fact that you would save more people than you kill doesn't mean there's no moral impact of making a decision that directly kills people. And I think that we who talk about this have a duty to be clear-eyed about the direct risks involved in doing it.
I actually think one of the most important questions we heard from was the question about acute triggers, and sort of. I think we've seen this in this country with Sandy, where climate change for at least a little while came back on the political radar screen because of extreme weather, whether it was actually caused or affected by climate change or not.
There you go.
Pretty funny to listen to that, isn't it? That's the sort of thing that you talk about in a philosophy class, like undergraduate, probably even high school philosophy, if such a thing exists. When you talk about it's consequentialism or utilitarianism, it's like, how do you decide? Do you kill 10,000 people to save 1 million or something like that? The fact that they're talking about that, like in reality, is quite astonishing, because it's usually just a thought experiment. That, but
especially in their scheme
also that
of
admission at the
dimming the
end,
sun.
whether or not it's caused by climate change. I mean, I wish more people would add that to the end of their comments on weather events.
Especially in their scheme of dimming the sun.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same old story, really, isn't it? And
I think
we must suffer.
I think, in all honesty, we should take together a GoFundMe and send all these scientists to the sun, to the center of the sun, and see if they can figure out how to dim it from there.
Well, maybe we'll send them there to find out if the sun really is hot, if they can confirm that.
Maybe we can send them in a Blue Origin rocket. Maybe some of those Katy Perry can lead that, because she's now an astronaut. And she can lead that charge. Take all these scientists up there to the sun, and go to the center of the sun, and then report back to us on how it worked out.
Yeah, why not, eh?
I'm willing to fund that. I think they should. I think
We'll
they
all
should go
chip
find
in.
out. I think they should go find out right from the center of the sun how hot it really is. Go to the sun. There you go. In our EV section, and we talked about this a little bit here already. I think we got a clip here to play for you on what this EV mandate really means here. We're going to play this clip.
Here we go again. Mark Carney's Liberals are slapping Canadians with yet another sneaky new tax. I call it the Carney tax. It's a $20,000 tax on gas-powered cars designed to force everyone to drive an electric vehicle. Here's how it works. Step 1, starting in 2026. Next year, the Liberals will limit the number of gas-powered cars that can be sold. Step 2, any manufacturer who dares sell more than the Liberal quota will be hit with a $20,000 tax per vehicle, a tax that will be passed directly on to you, the buyer. Step 3, by 2035, the Carney-Trudeau Liberals will go even further, banning gas-powered cars completely. Listen to Mr. Carney describe it himself.
If you're building a track record in terms of, let's say, the auto sector, like the Europeans and Germans and others saying, okay, no new internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030 and supported policies around that.
This Carney tax is an assault on Canadian workers and families. It will skyrocket car prices, shut down manufacturing plants in Oshawa and Windsor, and send thousands of good Canadian jobs to the United States, just like Trump wanted. No wonder President Trump has endorsed Mark Carney. No wonder President Trump says it would be easier for him if we have a Liberal government here in Canada.
I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a Liberal.
And all of this policy for what? Even the CAA found that EVs lose up to 40% of their battery life in cold weather. The test was done in just -7 to -15 degree weather conditions, practically balmy compared to winters in Winnipeg, Thunder Bay, and much of rural Canada. But Mark Carney, who spent most of his adult life outside of Canada and only came home to be Trudeau's economic advisor, doesn't understand the realities of Canadian life He doesn't care that his tax will make cars unaffordable and force families to choose between heating their homes and owning a vehicle. I got nothing against EVs. If you want one, buy one. But it shouldn't be forced on people. Canadians should not be left out in the cold again by the Liberals, or stranded on highways, or unable to buy a car at all just because Mark Carney and his Liberal friends are on an ideological crusade. Enough is enough. After the lost Liberal decade, you cannot afford a fourth term. A Conservative government will scrap the Carney tax immediately. No electric vehicle mandate. You choose the car you buy. We will put you back in the driver's seat. We will protect Canadian paychecks, keep cars affordable, and let you choose the vehicle that works best for your family. Because Canada should be a country again where hard work gets you a good life and a beautiful home with a nice car parked in the driveway that you can afford to buy and drive.
There you go.
Sounded a bit tired there, Pierre, didn't he? I think he'd probably done a few of those recordings, and he
probably
wasn't too happy about it.
The EV mandate, though, you and I have talked about it so many times, is that like I'm a big believer. I like EVs, but I also believe that people should buy what they need and that suits their family's needs. And I think that's, if we want an automobile industry in Canada, then if we keep this EV mandate, they will leave. And maybe we can do a bring back the Bricklin movement. Bring back the Bricklin, the only really Canadian-made automobile. The Bricklin, I don't even think they sold just under 2,000 of those. Maybe we can power that with, it's a Back to the Future looking car, actually from the Back to the Future, right?
Maybe we can invent a new car brand, the Maple Mobile or something like that.
Run it on maple syrup?
Yeah, call it biofuel.
Biofuel, yeah, there you go. Let's move on to our memes. And here's Brian Lilly from the Toronto, I think it's the Star, right? Or is the Sun? Sun, the Toronto Sun. He's got his can of soup out there, the CBC News condensed. Is that spelled right? I don't think so, eh?
It's not spelled right. I guess that's AI getting that wrong now.
I think the rest of it's spelled right, though.
Yeah. Hello, yeah, I don't know. No, it's that's cheeky. Would you have that soup?
I think Canadians get
that cream, sorry, whatever it is.
Canadian gets that soup every day. There you go. And then this one, again, ties into Kim Jong-un attends Ivy League University to learn brainwashing techniques. I think they're really good at it already.
It's quite funny, isn't it? I mean, talking about Chinese history, a lot of what we've seen, we're not seeing much of it now, but during COVID especially, where the students were like attacking the lecturers and stuff and the professors, that very much did occur in China during the Cultural Revolution and all that. And that was a real, very, very similar to Chinese history.
And this next meme, this is like real life, but it's kind of like a meme. We're gonna play this clip here where it's it's Kaylin Collins in June of 2024, and then Abby there in April 2025. You got to listen to this.
President Biden has spent days locked in intense preparation, surrounded by his closest advisors at Camp David. And our sources are telling us tonight that full mock debates are underway at the podium, under the lights. He's even watching tape to know exactly what he's going to see when he steps up to that lectern. His team shot a video during a walkthrough of the CNN studio. And as I reported while covering him at the White House, when Biden prepares, he does so incredibly intensively.
So just how worried were Biden aides before the former president's disastrous debate last summer? According to Ron Klain, his chief of staff, his concerns could not be overstated. At his first meeting with Biden for debate prep, quote, Klain was startled. He'd never seen Biden so exhausted and so out of it. Biden was unaware of what was happening in his own campaign. Halfway through the session, the president excused himself and went off to sit by the pool. The part about the pool, he went off, this is in the middle of debate prep, went off to the pool and he took a nap.
There you go. So everybody that's worried about the polls here in Canada and all the articles you're reading, that's what CNN was doing. And they were also, they've got their own can of soup, I think, that they're dealing with. Because now they're trying to pretend that What's that?
No, I was just going to make an irreverent comment. It's a shame that you cut off the best bit of that video there. I sadly have to confirm.
Which is the best part of that video?
Well, the top bit.
Oh, where you couldn't see her face. Yeah. It's what should the word she use? Incredibly intensive or something like. She actually put two adjectives together to make it sound even better.
Incredibly intensive. I mean, look, the American electoral system is very different, isn't it? And a lot of those polls, they were really tight anyway, though they did seem to just about lean towards Kamala, didn't they? But the thing is, though, in America, it's relatively easy, actually, especially nowadays, to win an election while losing the popular vote by a considerable amount. That's not quite so common in Canada, and even if it does happen, it's not usually by much. So
I
think that's what messes with pollsters quite a lot of the time in America.
I think I was more referencing what the articles are coming out, like, you know what I mean? Like the articles that really seem to be slagging one party versus the other party. And then, I mean, there definitely is a leaning that way in the mainstream media. And then if you look at what CNN did, and they continue to do this too. Now they're trying to pretend that they were actually on that whole story all the way along. You have to wonder.
No, I mean they humiliated themselves, didn't they? Well, the thing with the Biden degradation or whatever you want to call it, it was like a switch flipped, if you remember, straight after that debate. Suddenly it was like they all just had a new sort of like script to read from.
Yeah.
It was like something to behold. That
George Clooney was the flipper of the switch too. Seems like an odd person to be.
Yeah, it was actually. Wasn't Clooney was at the center of all that.
I think Barack Obama may have given him the switch to flip. He didn't want to do it himself. There you go.
Clooney comes and finishes you off. That's how it works in American politics these days.
Clooney, the closer. There you go. And then Caitlin Collins earns this little clip here because of her last little bumble job there. Look at that. Caitlin Collins says, behind closed doors, Pope is still focused, sharp, and energetic.
That's good. It's not a
right?
very good picture of her there, though, is it? Not
No.
very good picture of Francis either.
No. So yeah. So they're still betting that there'll be a, he'll be in the running for the next Pope. And this one is, I think, one of the best ones we've done in a long time, or that we put up here from the Babylon Bee. I think this is absolutely the best. And child of leftist parents, tired of all the crying. Stop crying. Stop crying. I'll give you something to cry about. That's what my dad used to say.
Yeah, that's the old-fashioned way, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't get to say that. But then just for good measure, we've left this one in here because I think this one is really good, because nothing like Elizabeth Warren and AOC drinking the food dyes to protest RFK. You gonna put that last one up there? There you go. Who doesn't need?
It's not completely beyond the realms of possibility, though, is it? Because I'm sure that you can remember, as I can, when Nancy Pelosi and all sorts of people like that went to Chinatown in the cities in America so that they could hug random strangers, just as COVID was starting to spread. I mean, they really will do things like that. That's how nuts they are. They will put ideology ahead of their own personal safety. I mean, sort of like the definition of religious fervor, isn't it?
Nancy Pelosi also defended insider stock trading and saying that that was her right. Well, her husband.
She's got to get paid.
She's got to get paid. Somebody's got to get paid, right? Yeah. So it's a clown show down there, 100%, and they're bringing some of that clown show here because a lot of the stuff doesn't make sense, and that's what's angering a lot of people. Really, that's what's got a lot of people angry, because you look at this stuff and you say, like, where's the accountability and the transparency? You'd think that this question hasn't been asked. All those, that green slush fund here in Canada, that they one of the reasons they pro-government, nobody's been asking that question. Why don't you release those documents? He's the prime minister right now. He can release those documents. Why has nobody been? Why haven't they released those documents? Why haven't they asked about those documents?
Yeah, I mean, anything to do with transparency these days is just like off the agenda, isn't it? It's just like it's a foregone conclusion. You just got to shut up, basically.
And why have they not? And they let this go too, just because he doesn't answer. Why is there no disclosure? Why has he not disclosed yet? Most of the things in the plan are there's potential conflicts of interest, like the $25 billion in housing, modular housing, which Brookfield happens to be a housing builder. Instead of like tapping our biggest resource, natural resources we have, we're going to do a green agenda, a green energy superpower, which happens to be Brookfield. And they're going to sell carbon credits to people. And who sells carbon credits? Like it's just on and on and on and on and on. And where's the media asking questions? Why aren't they asking those questions? Why are they not asking those questions? And if we get a government that is, again, funding the only media outlet left to survive in Canada, that media outlet surely not going to be asking any of those questions, will it?
I shouldn't imagine so, especially if they're going to be called up behind the scenes and told, like, watch it. Oh, you know, you might end up losing your funding.
And so I mean, this is, we may well be on our last legs here, so we can say more stuff, but Monday night, you're going to get to decide whether there's a free and independent media in Canada, or if you want the internet choked off some more. And if you want to ever see like freedom of speech, you'll have to go down to the United States, which maybe you won't even be allowed to go down there. Go down to the United States and stay in a hotel room and then open up Facebook and X.
Well, you might go down there with that intention and end up being arrested and hurled into some sort of immigration detention center, courtesy of the angry orange man.
It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Maybe we're in a bad dream. Maybe we're in a bad dream. I don't know. Does it feel like it to you that you're in a bad dream? Not sure.
It's felt like that since at least 2019 with the beginning of the COVID madness, but maybe even earlier. Maybe since 2016. That was the sort of watershed year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So tomorrow we're going to be on later because we have a big booking in here tomorrow. So we're going to be on at 1 o'clock. That'll be our last show before Election Day. And then, well, I guess we'll be on in the morning on Election Day. And then we're going to be here on April 28th doing live streaming the election until somebody wins. There you go.
Yeah, let's hope that it's on the night rather than taking a week or something to decide.
And we thank you, Iain, for your support. And if you want a free and independent media, make sure you consider that when you're voting. Or if you want to just have one government-funded media, that'll be awesome too, I guess. There you go. And I'll say this: if independent media wins on Monday night, we're willing to hire people from CBC. I wonder if they'll say. I'm wondering if they'll say the same thing for us. There you go. With that said,
oh yeah, they love us.
Yeah, they do. I bet. With that said, we do thank you for watching NowMedia.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.